Who determined that the 39 Melakhot were based on the work done on the construction of the Mishkhan? And who decided on all those subcategories, the toladot of work listed under the 39, and why? This one sits right at the crossroads where text, tradition, and a little rabbinic reverse engineering all shake hands and say, let's make Shabbat complicated. The short answer as to the who is the sages of the Talmud, specifically in Mishnah Shabbat 7 verse 2, and expanded heavily in the Gemara, Shabbat 49b. The longer answer is a little more complicated. The Torah gives us a command to keep Shabbat holy, but it never gives us a neat bullet point list of prohibited activities. So the early sages noticed something curious. Every time the Torah talks about Shabbat in Exodus, Sefer Shemot, it sticks that command right next to laws about building the Mishkhan, the tabernacle. That's classic biblical hint, hint, nudge, nudge behavior. Therefore, the sages concluded that whatever counted as Melakhot in the Mishkhan, that's what Shabbat prohibits. Talmud, Shabbat 49b. In other words, the Mishkhan becomes the template, the archetype. If it was creative, constructive, or skilled labor in the Mishkhan, it belonged on the list of forbidden work on Shabbat. Okay, that's all well and good, but where and why do we get exactly 39? Mishnah Shabbat 7 verse 2 gives the list as 39 items, no commentary, just the raw menu. The Talmud offers midrashic reasoning found in Shabbat 49b. The term melachah, work, melachto, his work, and melachet, work in construct form, appear 39 times in the Torah. That's classic rabbinic numerology meets literary analysis. Not exactly a proof, but a remez, a textual wink from Hashem. Then how were those toladot subcategories invented and why? This is the rabbis rolling up their sleeves. Each of the 39 is not a single activity, but a category, an archetype of creative labor called Av Melachah. The toladot were defined by the sages of the Talmud to, number 1, explain what counts as the same type of creative activity. For example, plowing is an av melacha. Weeding, fertilizing, and breaking clods are toladot, similar enough in purpose and result to be the same family of work. Secondly, building fences or hedges and making Shabbat observance practicable. The rabbis weren't trying to make life miserable. They were trying to prevent accidental Torah violations. But once you define what counts as creative action, the categories grow like a kabod house in a college town. Third, in order to help create a consistent legal framework so a judge could identify, is this action biblically prohibited, rabbinically prohibited, or permitted? Without those subcategories, Shabbat law would be the wild, wild west. And finally, the fourth reason is to connect modern actions to ancient definitions. You can't sew a curtain for the Mishkhan today, but you can use a sewing machine. Toladot allow the halakha to scale forward into new eras. Sometime those decisions for new eras can become quite controversial. Refrigerator lights, anyone. So then why base Shabbat law on the Mishkan's construction at all? There are at least two big reasons. The Mishkhan was the pinnacle of human creative work at the time it was commanded to be built. A portable cathedral in the desert wilderness requires craftsmanship, artistry, engineering, every skilled discipline. The rabbis took the Torah's hint and concluded, if Shabbat is about cessation from creative work, the standard for creative work is what we did to build Hashem's house. The second is a theological point. You rest from making the Mishkhan to honor the Elohim who rests from making the universe. It ties cosmic creation to communal creation. So the bottom line can be stated as the 39 categories set by the early sages in the Mishnah and Talmud elaboration are decisive for all generations. The connection to the Mishkan are based on rabbinic hermeneutics, which itself is based on textual proximity and midrashic reasoning, while the subcategories, the toladot developed by our Talmudic sages, refine halakha for clarity, consistency, and future application. Let's bring this a little closer to home to our times in the 21st century. Some modern-day rulings are elegant, some are a hot mess, and some are absolutely paramount-level decision-making. I'm going to cover the big three many ask about. I'll start with the big kahuna, electricity, the halakhic problem child. Electricity isn't mentioned in the Torah, so the big question became, which malakah does electricity most closely imitate? The first that came up in great rabbinic debates over this was building, boneh. Closing an electrical circuit equals creating a functioning system. So many poskim, legal Torah scholars, hold that flipping a switch builds a circuit. Turning it off destroys. Soter. This is the standard view in most Orthodox circles, but remains highly debated among Jews outside of Orthodoxy. The kindling of fire, mav'ir, is covered in the Torah. Incandescent bulbs glow because their filament heats until red hot. The rabbis saw that and said, "Nu, that's a fire." However, the newer LED bulbs complicate this because there's no glowing filament, so some authorities view LEDs differently. The idea of making something new, molid, finds a minority opinion that says electricity generates a new state in an object, heat, light, magnetism, which is its own issue. So then, when it comes to electricity, what is the practical takeaway? According to majority rabbinic rule, turning devices on-off is generally prohibited. Timers are allowed if preset before Shabbat. Certain types of Shabbat lamps are permissible if turned on before Shabbat. Elevators can operate if set to stop on all floors with automatic door opening and closing at each floor. But smart devices trigger questions about grama, indirect causation, and sensors, depending on your affiliation items such as cell phones, computers, etc., are forbidden for use by the Orthodox, but not necessarily by some conservative, and all Reformed affiliation. Since we have become a world of constant photography on cell phones with selfies and video recording, how is this approached by Shabbat law? It's all about writing and building. Photography hits multiple Melakhot depending on the type. Film photography, old school, has a process of developing film which equals dyeing, zoveah. Fixing an image in rabbinic law is equal to writing, kotev. Some poskim add erasing, mokek, to the mix. Basically, chemical sorcery equals malaka. Film developing on Shabbat is a no from every direction. But what about digital photography? This is where it gets more philosophical. You're not staining paper, you're rearranging electrons in memory cells. Major poskim say it counts as writing. You're creating persistent information. And to building, you're creating a digital file system. The real issue is that taking a picture involves completing a circuit already discussed earlier with electricity. With live video, zoom, and monitoring, since nothing is being saved, some rabbis argue there's no writing. But sensors and circuits activate, still causing a problem. Then there are those security cameras. They are allowed if running on a timer and you don't intentionally trigger them, or if they are on a continuous circuit requiring no off-on switching. Therefore, when it comes to photography on Shabbat, the bottom line is if you want a selfie, look in a mirror. You cannot capture your selfie on a device. Now we come to the newest challenge for rabbinic halakha, artificial intelligence, the new frontier. AI on Shabbat is like debating whether a golem can violate halakha. Fascinating, funny, and slightly terrifying. Direct AI interaction is equal to electric Melakhot. Typing, speaking into a microphone, triggering sensors are all classic electricity issues. So, using ChatGPT or Grok on Shabbat is Gomor Asur, fully prohibited. How about setting up AI before Shabbat? If you set something to run automatically, such as for analyzing data, generating summaries, transcoding video, that is generally allowed as long as you don't start it on Shabbat, it doesn't create public noise, and it doesn't cause Jews to violate Shabbat on your behalf. Amira lakum. If you have AI that responds to motion, smart homes, this is where things get messy. Some examples are walking by a smart lamp that turns on, opening a fridge that triggers a fan, or motion detectors that send data to the cloud. The halakhic concerns over this are molid, creating a new electrical state, bone, soter, closing opening circuits, kotev, logging data, and dash miamer if it's farming equipment. You never know. Bottom line, most poskim say to disable automations before Shabbat. And finally, with AI, there is AI image creation on Shabbat. Generating an image requires computer calculation, which requires electricity. Storing it is treated as writing. Rendering visible light is equated to kindling for screens. So creating images on Shabbat is prohibited, same as photography. To this day, great debate still occurs within the halls of scholarship and yeshivot as it pertains to work on Shabbat. But the larger principle is the fact that Shabbat protects human creativity. The Mishkhan showed what humanity could create. Shabbat says, "You brilliant creatures take 25 hours and stop trying to make the universe bend to your will." Whether it's plowing a field or training a neural net, the theme is the same. Pause the creative engine, rest, and just be. Thank you for staying to the end of this video or for reading the entire blog. This was just an introduction to the 39 Melakhot for Shabbat. It can be a bit intimidating but fascinating at the same time. If you want a deeper dive into the monumental importance of what it means to rest on Shabbat, I highly recommend the 3-volume work titled Yalkut Yosef, based on the halakhic decisions of Maran the Rishon LeZion, Posek Hador, Hagaon Rabbeinu Ovadia Yosef. You will not regret a moment of study in this great work. Please like, subscribe, and share this with others. You can find all my works on Rumble, YouTube, Locals, Substack, and Blogger. Please leave your comments below or email me to shmu@startmail.com. Until next time, this is Shmuel ben Shlomi of Shmu's Views wishing you shalom.